Badenoch is determined to do what many of her predecessors have failed to achieve, to reclaim the mantle of economic competence for a Conservative Party still scarred by Liz Truss's catastrophic mini-budget. And her plan, the thing which is meant to steady a shaken party, has revolved around what she grandly calls a golden economic rule. It sounds like something out of the Bible. It sounds reassuring, but what does it actually mean, and will anyone believe it, or that she is even capable of producing it, or holding fast to it, or doing it? The rule itself is simple enough. For every pound a future Conservative government saves, at least half will be spent paying down the deficit, that stubborn gap between what Britain spends and what it earns. And the other half can be used for tax cuts or new spending designed to grow the economy. On paper, it is fiscal hygiene, responsibility today, opportunity tomorrow, as she framed it. Badenoch wants to persuade voters that the Conservatives can restore public finances and still reward hard work with lower taxes. It is a calculated echo of George Osborne's Age of Austerity, and the very phrase Golden Rule harks back to the Cameron-Osborne years, when the deficit became the moral question of British politics. But today's landscape is harsher. Interest payments on the national debt are climbing, growth is weak, public services are stretched. And simply promising to cut £47 billion, that's £23 billion from welfare, £8 billion from the civil service, £7 billion from overseas aid, without detail on what goes and who suffers, invites scepticism. It's here that critics say Badenoch's numbers look like slogans scribbled on the back of Nigel Farage's proverbial fag packet. And Labour has seized on that. A spokesperson said Badenoch has some brass neck. No apology for the Truss meltdown that drove up mortgages and supermarket prices, yet a lecture on fiscal discipline. The Liberal Democrats mocked the idea that the public would trust the Tories with the economy, quipping that Conservative economics is almost as bad as their spelling, a dig at the misspelled conference chocolate bars, proclaiming Britain loses. And Badenoch is also making a big play on higher education. She'll cap and cut student numbers, especially so-called rip-off degrees, to save £3 billion, then use it to double the apprenticeship budget. This, she says, will give young people a proper start in life. It's a pointed cultural signal. Fewer humanities students, more welders and coders. Well, why have coders when you've got ChatGPT? Whether that really drives productivity is contested, but it is politically useful. It says she's siding with strivers over what some on the right call the university bubble. All this lands in a bleak political setting. Badenoch's Conservatives are polling in the mid-teens, behind both Labour and Nigel Farage's insurgent Reform UK. Her leadership is questioned openly. Robert Jenrick, despite embroilment in a race row, is a bigger draw on the fringe. The conference halls were half empty, and yet she tries to project defiance. I'm not losing, I'm going to be winning, she told the BBC, and to frame herself as the last adult in the room of fantasists. Labour addicted to borrowing, Reform addicted to spending promises they can't fund. But the Golden Rule has an obvious fragility. First, it assumes there are painless billions to cut, yet public services have already been cut to the bone, as even some Reform-run councils now admit. And second, it doesn't solve the central problem, Britain's anemic growth. Paying down debt matters, but doing so by squeezing welfare and shrinking the civil service is not a growth strategy, it's a retrenchment strategy. And finally, the memory of Liz Truss, which lingers like a bad smell. The markets punished fiscal irresponsibility once. They may punish political wishful thinking again. And still Badenoch's rhetoric matters. She's trying to rewrite the Conservative story. We squandered trust under Truss. We flirted with populism under Johnson. But now we will balance the books and reward enterprise. The problem is it's the wrong person to do it. She frames Rachel Reeves as a reckless borrower who will steal from our children and grandchildren, while she alone will stop the borrowing and tax doom loop. It's an appeal to a core Tory instinct, prudence, but one that may no longer resonate with an electorate weary of austerity. To this end, this Golden Rule is less an economic doctrine and more a political lifeline. It's Badenoch saying, "Trust me with the tiller, I am not Liz Truss, I am not Nigel Farage. I'm a serious steward of the public purse." The question is whether voters, after years of chaos, still believe that claim. A golden rule. A rule is only golden if people believe it can hold. Let me give you a golden rule that she should have stood up and said. The golden rule for the Conservative Party. We may have the future if Kemi Badenoch resigns. The only golden rule that matters is her resignation. She cannot be trusted with the tiller. She cannot be trusted to say she's not Liz Truss because she's practically a shadow of Liz Truss. Liz Truss damaged the economy. Kemi Badenoch is damaging the politics, the party, the future. She is not Nigel Farage, but she might just as well be. There's nothing positive to say about Liz Truss. There's even less positive to say about Robert Jenrick. The Conservative Party needs to find a future. It needs to find a future fast, and it's not Tweedledum and Tweedledee.